My name is Victoria Langford, and for 68 years I thought my worth was wrapped up in the steady hands of a nurse who mended broken bodies and quiet hearts. I spent 45 years in hospitals and clinics, first as a floor nurse at Riverside General, then as head nurse in pediatrics, wiping tears, holding hands through the worst nights, and celebrating the small miracles of recovery. The antiseptic smell of those halls still lingers in my memory, mixed with the soft beeps of monitors and the warmth of tiny fingers clutching mine. My retirement party 4 years ago was filled with handmade thank you cards from former patients, and engraved stethoscope pendant that I still wear close to my heart, and hugs that made me feel like I'd done something that mattered. Everyone praised my compassion, my endless patience. They never knew that patience was a wall I'd built around myself, layer by layer, taught by my own mother, Ruth, who raised me alone after my father left. She was a factory worker, coming home with aching feet and calloused hands, the faint scent of machine oil clinging to her clothes, always saying, "Victoria, a woman's strength is in her silence. Don't fight the current, just keep everyone else afloat." Her voice was tired but firm, echoing in our small kitchen over bowls of simple soup. She gave up her dreams of nursing school to put food on our table, and I followed in her footsteps, not because I dreamed big, but because it was safe, reliable, needed. Deep down, I wondered if I'd ever truly chosen anything for myself. I lived in the same modest bungalow in Oak Ridge for decades because it was practical. The creak of the wooden porch under my feet each evening, the familiar scent of lavender from the bushes I'd planted years ago. I drove a sensible sedan, clipped coupons at the kitchen table under the soft glow of a single lamp, saved every penny in a simple savings account. I was the picture of humble, devoted retirement. My son, Alexander, was my deepest joy. He'd become a respected architect in the city, married to a sharp, driven woman named Vanessa. I'll be honest, Vanessa intimidated me from the start. She was all polished confidence and bold ideas, talking about sustainable developments and networking events, from a family of old money and high expectations, the opposite of the quiet sacrifice I'd known. Her perfume was always something expensive and sharp, cutting through the air whenever she entered a room. But she made Alexander happy, and together they gave me my granddaughter Mia, the brightest spark in my world at 8 years old. Her laughter filled the gaps in my days, like sunlight breaking through clouds. I thought we'd settled into an uneasy but loving balance. I was so wrong. It all came crashing down one ordinary Thursday afternoon. I was at Alexander and Vanessa's sleek loft apartment downtown, all exposed brick and minimalist furniture that always felt a bit sterile to me, the cool air from the vents humming quietly, the faint echo of city traffic far below. I'd been babysitting Mia while Vanessa was at an important client pitch. We'd just finished constructing an epic blanket fort in the living room, complete with flashlight lanterns casting dancing shadows and a drawbridge made from couch cushions. Mia was laughing wildly, her cheeks flushed with that innocent delight only kids have, her small hands sticky from the snacks we'd shared. I was down on the floor, pretending to be the dragon guarding the treasure, my old knees protesting against the hard wood, when the door opened and Vanessa's heels clicked sharply across the hard wood, each step like a countdown. She wasn't alone. Her parents, Victor and Elaine Hargrove, were with her. Victor was a broad-shouldered man who carried himself like he owned every room, his cologne heavy and overpowering, and Elaine was elegant, always in tailored outfits that whispered wealth, her jewelry catching the light with subtle glints. Alexander's voice called out, "Mom, we're back a bit early," with an edge of unease I couldn't ignore, his words hanging in the suddenly thick air. I crawled out from the fort, my knees creaking loudly, hair escaping my ponytail in wispy strands, looking every bit the 68-year-old grandmother in comfortable slacks and a soft cardigan that suddenly felt too worn, too plain. Vanessa's smile was thin, forced, her lipstick a perfect line that didn't reach her eyes. "Victoria, you're still here?" I tried to lighten the air, forcing a chuckle that felt hollow. We were just slaying the dragon in our castle. Mia ran to her mom, beaming, tugging at her hand. Mommy, Grandma made the best fort ever! Elaine's eyes scanned the mess of blankets and pillows with a subtle frown, her nose wrinkling just slightly like it offended her sense of order. Victor barely acknowledged me, checking his watch with an impatient sigh. Vanessa pulled Alexander aside into the kitchen, her voice low but urgent, the clink of glasses faint from behind the door. That left me standing awkwardly with her parents amid the joyful chaos, the blankets still warm from our play, Mia's giggles fading into uncertain quiet. Then I noticed the brochure in Victor's hand, glossy, expensive-looking, its pages crisp under his thick fingers. Victoria, Victor started without preamble, his voice booming in the open space. Vanessa mentions you've been spending a lot of time with Mia lately. She's my granddaughter, I replied, feeling defensive heat rise in my cheeks. I adore her. Naturally, he said dismissively, waving a hand as if brushing away a fly. But we've been discussing Mia's future, her true potential. The elite academy in England that Vanessa attended has an opening for next term. It's extraordinary, prepares children for the real world. My stomach dropped, a cold knot forming as the room seemed to tilt. Academy? She's 8. My voice came out smaller than I intended. Exactly the right age to start building connections, Elaine added smoothly, her voice refined and cutting, like glass edges hidden in silk. The network there is priceless, leaders, innovators. I glanced toward the kitchen, the muffled voices growing tense, hoping Alexander would intervene, my heart pounding in the silence. Vanessa emerged, Alexander behind her looking uncomfortable, his shoulders slumped. We've decided it's best, Vanessa said firmly, crossing her arms. Best for whom? I asked, my voice shaking now, hands clenching at my sides. To send a little girl thousands of miles away? Victor fixed me with a patronizing stare, his eyes narrowing. With respect, Victoria, what sort of future can you offer her? Bedtime stories and blanket forts? The world demands excellence. Mia needs opportunities you can't possibly give. The words stung like salt in an open wound, burning deep, making my throat tight. Opportunities you can't possibly give. Elaine stepped closer, her hand light on my arm but cold as marble, her rings pressing into my skin. Victoria, dear, we appreciate your affection, but think of her legacy. We don't want her held back by a limited outlook. We don't want her growing up ordinary. Ordinary. It pierced straight through me, echoing everything I'd been taught. Be useful, be quiet, don't aspire too high. My mother's words rang in my ears. Keep everyone afloat, don't make waves. A wave of old fear washed over me, the familiar urge to shrink, to apologize for existing too loudly. But then I looked at Alexander, my son, and he avoided my eyes, staring at the floor, his silence heavier than any words. In that moment, something inside me shattered, or maybe ignited, a spark I'd buried for decades flaring to life. The devoted, self-effacing nurse faded, replaced by a woman with fire they'd never suspected, my breath steadying as resolve hardened in my chest. If you've ever felt that sting of being dismissed, if my words are hitting close to home right now, subscribe to the channel. There are more stories like this, real women finding their voice. Stay with me, you're not alone. A limited outlook? I echoed softly, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me, though my heart raced beneath the calm. I met Vanessa's triumphant gaze, Elaine's smug one, Victor's arrogant, holding each for a beat longer than comfortable. You really think you understand limits? The words tasted like freedom on my tongue. I excused myself from the room, my steps deliberate despite the tremor in my legs, walking to the entryway where I'd hung my coat, the fabric still holding the faint warmth of the car ride over. From the pocket, alongside my house keys and car fob, I pulled out a small, plain black drive. It looked like nothing special, maybe an old external hard drive, cool and smooth in my palm. Vanessa noticed, her brow furrowing. "What's that?" Suspicion laced her tone, sharp as her heels. I didn't reply, the silence my first small act of defiance. Instead, I went to the large smart panel on the wall that controlled the lights, climate, everything in their high-tech home, a system I'd always acted clueless about, fumbling on purpose during visits. The screen was cool under my touch as I inserted the drive into a discreet side port. It lit up with a secure login prompt, the blue glow reflecting in my eyes. My fingers, usually clumsy with apps, typed swiftly, a complex password I'd memorized years ago, then a quick biometric scan from the drive's sensor, the faint whir barely audible. Alexander's eyes widened, his mouth parting slightly. "Mom, what are you doing?" His voice cracked with confusion. The dashboard appeared, clean and professional, lines of data scrolling smoothly. At the top, Apex Horizon Ventures. Victor, who'd been scrolling his phone with bored indifference, glanced up and paled, his face draining of color under the recessed lighting. "Apex Horizon? The private equity firm?" His words stumbled out, his phone forgotten in his hand. I turned to them, the screen's light illuminating my face in sharp contrasts, shadows deepening the lines I'd earned over decades. I wasn't just Victoria, the retired nurse, anymore. I was Victoria Langford, the undisclosed founding partner and majority stakeholder in one of the most powerful, low-profile investment groups on the East Coast. "You questioned the opportunities I could provide, Mia," I said, calm but unyielding, my voice carrying through the hushed room. "Allow me to demonstrate." I navigated to the portfolio overview, the numbers glowing starkly. The figures were staggering, and as I spoke, my nursing habit of clear communication kicked in, steadying me. "It started small," I explained, the memory vivid, the dim glow of a night shift in 1995, scribbling code ideas on scrap paper while monitors beeped softly. I designed a patient monitoring software prototype to help track vital signs more efficiently, the hospital's fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. They bought it outright for $8,200, a windfall then, the check falling heavy in my hands. But I kept the core patents, using that money to file them properly, my heart pounding with a secret thrill I'd never shared. By the early 2000s, as telemedicine exploded, those patents underpinned major health tech platforms. Royalties poured in quietly. I reinvested, spotting undervalued startups others missed, late nights poring over reports in my bungalow, coffee cooling beside me. "I have an eye for hidden potential," I said, looking down at Mia, who peeked out from behind me, her small hand warm in mine. "Just like I see it in my granddaughter, potential but has nothing to do with elite academies and everything to do with love and imagination." I pulled up holdings, early stakes in HealthSync Diagnostics in 2008, valued now at billions, and Mediflow Systems in 2014. Victor made a strangled noise, his chair scraping back slightly. "Mediflow? That's what absorbed my pharmaceutical distribution company 2 years ago. The majority investor was a shadow entity, Apex." He pointed shakily, his finger trembling. "You? You're why I lost control, forced out?" The room fell dead silent, the air conditioner humming louder in the void. Mia clung to my leg, sensing the shift. Vanessa stared, greed and shock warring on her face, her perfect posture cracking. Elaine looked faint, clutching her necklace. Alexander whispered, "Mom, why keep this secret all these years?" Pain flooded me, a sharp ache in my chest, but so did resolve, steeling my spine. "Because I watched what unchecked ambition does, Alexander. In patients, families losing everything to greed, in colleagues burning out. I wanted you grounded, building a life on integrity, not inheritance. I never wanted you ordinary, I wanted you free." I threw their word back and it hit hard, the echo lingering. I removed the drive slowly. The screen reverted to normal with a soft beep. Mia stays here. She'll have blanket forts, family dinners, a real childhood. Loved for herself, not a future balance sheet. I met Vanessa's eyes, unwavering despite the storm inside me. And you'll never dismiss me like that again. My legacy? It's the lives I saved under harsh hospital lights, the son I raised to kindness, though I hope he finds his spine, and the granddaughter I'll protect fiercely. I took Mia's hand, her fingers trusting in mine. Come on, darling, let's go to Grandma's. We left that cold loft, the door clicking shut behind us like a final punctuation, the silence deafening. But what happened next only fueled their desperation. In the days that followed, the calls started. Alexander pleading, confused, angry, his voice cracking over the phone line late at night. Vanessa shifted to calculation, her texts probing for details with false casualness. 3 days later, they arrived at my cozy bungalow unannounced, the autumn chill seeping in as I opened the door, their eyes hungry now, seeing it not as quaint but as a vault hiding secrets. Alexander burst in first, the scent of rain on his coat. How could you hide this, Mom? All those talks about budgeting, living simply, it was fake? It wasn't fake, I said, letting them in reluctantly, the familiar creak of my floorboards under their steps feeling violated. I was careful that wealth wouldn't warp you like it's warping them. Vanessa scanned my bookshelves, my knitted throws with the soft yarn I'd chosen myself, her fingers trailing greedily. Victoria, this is positive. Family unites around opportunity. We should collaborate on trusts, investments, Mia's future. Collaborate on what? I asked coolly, my tea forgotten and cooling on the side table. Exploiting my assets? She flushed briefly, a crack in her armor. Planning strategically for all of us. Alexander nodded hesitantly, rubbing his neck. Mom, she's right. This is huge. We can't ignore it. I've managed it responsibly for over 25 years, I replied, my voice firm, though doubt flickered. Was I too harsh? My priority is shielding Mia from being a tool in your ambitions. Vanessa snapped, her composure fracturing. How dare you? I'm securing my daughter's future, not this mediocrity. She waved at my home, the gesture slicing through the air. Leave, I said quietly, the words heavy but necessary. Now. They did, the door shutting with a thud that echoed in my chest, but it was war. A week later, a letter arrived from Hargrove and Associates, Victor's firm, the envelope crisp and official on my doormat. It politely questioned my stability post-delusional claims, hinting at limited grandparent access for Mia's well-being, the words blurring as tears threatened. They were gunning to isolate me, control her, and through her, me. But I wasn't defenseless. That night, alone in my kitchen with a cup of chamomile tea steaming beside me, its herbal scent calming my nerves, I stared at the letter under the warm pendant light. The paper felt heavy, threatening, my fingers tracing the embossed letterhead. My hands trembled at first, remembering all those years of swallowing pride, of being the supporter, never the fighter, smiling through exhaustion in the ER, hiding tears after shifts. Flashbacks hit me, nights comforting parents while hiding my own exhaustion, raising Alexander alone after his father walked out, scraping by on double shifts, the loneliness a constant shadow. I'd always put others first, questioning if I deserved more. But this? Threatening my bond with Mia, the one pure light? No. A quiet fury rose, warm and steady. I made calls, my voice stronger with each. First, to my attorney, Julia Ramirez, who'd structured Apex Horizon discreetly for years. They're crossing lines, I told her, the phone cool against my ear. Protect Mia. On it, she said crisply. Full disclosure ready, plus counters for coercion. Second, to my privacy consultant, Alex Turner, a sharp ex-intelligence operative keeping my life off radars. They hired a PI, he reported smoothly, digging tax records, property deeds. Invoice dated November 12, 2024, for $4,750 from a firm in Boston. End it. Already handled, cease and desist delivered. He's backed off. He added, Victor's finances are crumbling, over-leveraged post-buyout, margin calls looming on holdings worth $3.8 million. Collateral, their Hamptons property, mortgaged at 89% value per Suffolk County records as of last quarter. It clicked. They needed a bailout, saw me as salvation via Alexander and Mia, the realization bitter but empowering. But I had my small turn first, that satisfying shift of power, a moment I savored quietly. 2 days after the letter, I invited Alexander over alone. For coffee, I said, the aroma filling my kitchen as I baked his favorite muffins. He came wary, rain drizzling outside. We sat at my kitchen table, sunlight filtering through lace curtains, steam rising from our cups. I need you to see something, I said softly, my heart aching at his guarded expression. I opened my laptop, secure link to a summary statement. One account, $204 million as of December 2025. His face drained, eyes widening as he leaned in. Mom, this is real? Very. I closed it gently. But it's not for grabbing. It's proof I don't need their opportunities. He left shaken, questioning, hugging me awkwardly at the door. That seed of doubt in Vanessa's world? It was my quiet revenge, regaining footing without a full war yet, a small victory that warmed me for days. Tension built over weeks, the air thick with it. Vanessa texted demands disguised as concern, her words popping up on my phone screen late at night. Elaine called with fake sweetness, her voice syrupy over the line. Victoria, for Mia's sake, let's discuss options. Victor emailed about family legacy planning, attachments heavy with implications. Each time their words sharp. Don't hoard what could elevate us all, Vanessa once snapped in a voicemail, her tone venomous. You're selfishly ordinary. I reflected often, walking my neighborhood park alone, leaves crunching underfoot in the crisp air, wind whispering through branches. Was I wrong to hide it? Maybe, the guilt gnawing sometimes in quiet moments, but seeing their greed validated every fear. I'd protected Alexander longer than I realized, and now it was Mia's turn. The climax came in Julia's sleek conference room downtown, glass walls overlooking the city lights twinkling below, the air conditioned and sterile. Me, Julia, Alex on one side, papers neatly stacked, Alexander, Vanessa, Victor, Elaine, and their lawyer on the other, tension crackling like static. Their attorney opened smugly, adjusting his tie. Mrs. Langford, we're seeking reasonable visitation oversight given recent instability. Julia slid a statement across the polished table, the paper whispering. My client's net worth exceeds $1.2 billion across diversified assets. Stability isn't the issue. Then the dossier on Victor. Debts, impending foreclosures, pages thick with damning details. Perhaps review your side's motivations. Vanessa exploded, chair scraping back. This is blackmail. You deceived your own son. What kind of mother hides billions? Her voice echoed off the glass. The kind shielding him from people who value ledgers over love. I fired back, my voice rising for the first time, hands steady on the table. I saw your ambition early, Vanessa. Never dreamed you'd trade Mia's happiness for a rescue. Chaos erupted, accusations flying like shards, Vanessa's furious tears streaking her makeup, Victor muttering denials. Alexander sat silent, torn, his gaze flicking between us. I stayed composed, breathing deep, waves finally crashing inside me, justice tasting sweet amid the bitterness. Settlement. My terms, signed with reluctant pens. No charges for harassment. They sign away interference, drop threats. I created Mia's trust, $50 million, independent management, inaccessible to parents until maturity. Choice, not chains. As they filed out, defeated and silent, footsteps echoing down the hall, Alexander lingered, his hand on the door. Why not trust me, Mom? Heart heavy, eyes meeting his at last, I said, it was protection from a world that quantifies souls. I won't fail Mia like that. Distance grew, a quiet ache, but healing started slowly, tentative visits bridging the gap. Months later, I sold the bungalow, the closing feeling like closing a chapter, and bought a warm farmhouse on 5 acres outside town. Wildflower meadows swaying in the breeze, a grand oak sturdy and inviting for adventures. I founded the Ruth Initiative, scholarships for mature women pursuing delayed dreams, nursing, business, anything. The applications pouring in, each one a spark of hope. Making noise at last, my voice finally my own. Alexander brings Mia weekends now, the drive filled with her chatter. We built a treehouse in that oak, hammering nails under blue skies, laughter echoing, sap sticky on our hands, sawdust in the air. Mia's eyes sparkle as we add touches, her joy infectious. Alexander watches from below, expression softening, hurt fading to understanding, a small smile sometimes breaking through. One afternoon, painting the railing with the sun warm on our backs, brushes dripping, Mia asked seriously, her small face serious amid the scent of fresh wood, "Grandma, are we rich?" I knelt, hugging her paint-smudged self, her hair smelling of sunshine and childhood. "Yes, sweetheart, rich in love, time, stories, all that lasts. I'd lived silent, afloat for others, waves lapping but never breaking. But now, strength roars when needed. We're rich in what truly matters. What hidden strength have you unleashed or are ready to? Share below. I read every one. And if this story moved you, subscribe to the channel. More women like us, finding our fire. Stay for the next.